Shabbat Shalom, fam.
Shabbat Shalom.
Glad you guys can join us for another lesson. This is part 3 of our series on gifts of the Spirit. This is the final lesson, guys. We're in for a treat. I hope this series has been edifying to you guys. We've learned a lot. There's a lot more to come, especially in this lesson. We kind of got a different revelation of some things, and we're definitely going to share that with you guys. So grab your scriptures, grab your Bible, and join us, guys, for some great studying, great teaching on this gifts of the Spirit, fam. So if you hadn't watched the other 2 videos, the other 2 lessons, please go back and watch them, so that way you can get an understanding of where we're at. But for right now, we're just going to recap on where we're getting the gifts from. This is from 1 Corinthians chapter 12, where Paul talks about the gifts of the Spirit. And we're just going to reread the spirits again right quick. Reread the gifts right quick. You want to read that for me?
Yes, 1 Corinthians 12. Now concerning spiritual gifts, brethren, I would not have you ignorant. Ye know that ye were Gentiles, carried away unto these dumb idols, even as ye were led. Wherefore I give you to understand that no man speaking by the Spirit of Elohim calleth Yahuwah accursed, and that no man can say that Yahuwah is the master, but by the set apart Spirit. Now there are diversities of gifts, but the same Spirit. And there are differences of administrations, but the same master. And there are diversities of operations, but it is the same Elohim which worketh all in all. But the manifestation of the Spirit is given to every man to profit withal. For to one is given by the Spirit of the word of wisdom, to another the word of knowledge by the same Spirit, to another faith by the same Spirit, to another the gifts of healing by the same Spirit, to another the working of miracles, to another prophecy, to another discerning of spirits, to another diverse kinds of tongues, to another the interpretation of tongues. But all these worketh that one in the self same Spirit, dividing to every man severally as he will. For as the body is one, and had many members, and all members of that one body, being many, are one body, so also is Messiah. For by one Spirit are we all baptized into one body, whether we be Yahudis, we have Jews, or Gentiles, whether we be bond or free, and have been all made to drink into one Spirit.
Yep. So that's it, guys. That's Paul laid out all the different gifts of the Spirit. So last week we covered the working of miracles, the gift of miracles. So this week we're gonna cover prophecy, the discerning of spirits, and the tongues, the gift of tongues. So first, let's dive into the gift of prophecy, and that is defined in the Greek. It's Greek number 4395, and the word in Greek is propheto, and it means to foretell, tell forth, prophesy. And guys, we know we all came out of Christian church, and it's totally different compared to what we learned in religion. In religion, they teach you that somebody's going to prophesy over your life, more like material gifts and things like that. And that's how Christianity teaches. That's what religion teaches. But when we look in the scriptures, it's totally different, and we're going to outline that for you guys. And just like the gift of prophecy, it's like all the other gifts. All these gifts, guys, all these gifts, family, is to edify the body. That's what all these gifts is about.
Can't say that enough, because that's really what it is.
It's to edify the body, not to lift any one person up, not to lift yourself up, not to lift us up. It's to edify the body at the end of the day. And we're going to define what edify really means. But Paul talks about this gift of prophecy. He talks about it in 1 Corinthians 14:1. And this is important. I'm sure it might shock you guys.
Did you give? I just want to make sure.
Oh, you want to talk about some of the...
No, did you give the... You gave these?
Yep.
All right. Okay.
Paul talks about it in 1 Corinthians 14:1. And like I was saying, it's this is one of the gifts that we should pray for. This is one of the gifts that we should want. Because, again, like I just said, it's to edify the assembly, edify the body of believers. And Paul talks about it. He says in verse 1, pursue love and desire spiritual gifts, but especially that you may prophesy. So he's singling this gift out, that we may prophesy. Now, why is that? He's going to explain it. He says, for he who speaks in a tongue does not speak to men, but to Yah. For no one understands him. However, in the spirit, he speaks mysteries. But he who prophesies speaks edification and exhortation and comfort to men. So he's saying the person that prophesies, they speak comfort. They exhort, meaning they lift up their brothers. And they comfort their brothers. They comfort their brothers. He who speaks in a tongue edifies himself. But he who prophesies edifies the assembly. I wish you all spoke with tongues, but even more that you prophesy. For he who prophesies is greater than he who speaks in tongues, unless indeed he interprets, that the assembly may receive edification. So family, you see that it's important. Like I just said a while ago, all these gifts is to edify the body. And when you really look at the definition of edification, let's really look at what that means. And that's in the Greek number 3619. And that word is okidomi, or oikidomi, however they say it. And it's the act of building, spiritual advancement, constructive criticism, and instruction that builds a person up to be a suitable dwelling place for Yah, of Yah. That's powerful, fam. That's the purpose of edification. And that's something that we always say when we come on here and do the lessons. We come here to edify the body, to uplift you guys, so that we all not only uplift you, but uplift us, because we learn things when we're doing these lessons. That we never thought of. A lot of stuff that's in our head is still stuff from religion, still stuff from church that we taught, and we have to pretty much re-educate ourselves, which is going in the word of Yah. Which a lot of people don't do that on religion. They just take the word of what their pastor says, what religion says, and they take that as the truth. But when we delve in scriptures, we see that the word says something totally different, family. But I never looked at that word like that before, edification. What it really means. It means the building up, the act of building, spiritual advancement, constructive criticism, and instruction that builds a person up to be a suitable dwelling place of Yah.
And what is the dwelling place of Yah?
What's the dwelling place of Yah?
We are his temples. It says we are the temple of the believers, are the temple of Yah. So he dwells within us. His spirit dwells in us. So we know that his ultimate home is heaven, because it says heaven is his home and the earth is his footstool. But it also teaches us that Yah dwells in us. His spirit is in us as believers. Absolutely. That's powerful. So that the part that was powerful for me too is that the edification, knowing that is how did it break it down? Because I want to say it exact. But for the edification, how it says is for the act of building and the spiritual advancement, the constructive criticism and instruction that builds a person up. So I'm saying, looking at the two, because in the church they would look at it more like, you know how they always saying love, and in their mind, building up is always like, oh, you can't say nothing wrong. You can't tell people about themselves. You can't judge them. But it also says constructive criticism. So, are they really walking in this? Are they really walking this? Because if you do constructive criticism in the churches, they're going to say you judgmental. You're judging me. Why are you judging the people? And they're going to actually look at you as evil or something wrong with you, or you not really truly walking in the spirit. But this thing actually says constructive criticism too. But now, let me say this. Constructive criticism is not beating your brother and sister over the head. We talked about it all the time. We talked about it many being prideful. That's not what that is. That's using wisdom. That's going to Yah and using wisdom, before you approach your brother. But
Yeah,
You
we
know,
talked
just
about
wanted
that in
to.
part one. Yeah, that's true what you said, and especially in religion, family, that's you can't point out to your brother what they're doing wrong, or hey, you're on the wrong path because what they say you're supposed to love, or you're not
Right,
walking in the spirit like you said.
right,
So that's
right,
not edification, and the true
right,
edification is constructive criticism, which we
right.
always say there's a way to do it.
Right. You have
Um,
to be wise in that because
exactly.
some people are very careless with it and
Mm-hmm.
they're being really prideful with it and
Yep.
their ego is in the way.
Exactly.
So it's a way to do that.
Exactly. Very powerful. So I hope y'all got something from that, family. The edification, because we always talk about it, but that was my first time actually defining it and see what it really means.
Right.
So that's very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Family, the gift of prophecy, kind of how it is broken down, is the ability to receive a divinely inspired message and deliver it to others in the body. And these messages can take form of exhortation, correction, a disclosure of sins, prediction of future events, comfort, inspiration, like the word just defined it in the Strong's, or other revelations given to equip and edify the body. But the thing with the prophesying, family, it has to be done where it has to line up with scriptures. Somebody just can't come and prophesy to you and it doesn't align with scriptures, and that's what we were talking about earlier. When they're doing this in the church, they're doing this in religion. A lot of time when people prophesy over you or speak a word into your life, it's something dealing with material things. Oh, you're going to gain a house.
Absolutely.
Oh, you're going to get this new car.
Yep.
Oh, I see blessings coming into your life, material blessings. Where does the word say that? It has to align with
says,
scripture.
love not the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in them.
Exactly.
So, and it also talks about the pride of life and the pride of possessions. It doesn't come from Yah. So we gotta ask ourselves: are these people really prophets?
Right.
And that's what we're gonna talk about too, about prophets, because there's some good revelation came from this when it comes to the prophets.
Right. Talk about that.
Well, we got to ask ourselves, do prophets today even exist? We know prophecy does, because we're talking about the gift of prophecy.
Right.
That does exist, which is when you're being inspired, through the Spirit by Yah to speak on a thing. But does the prophet still exist today? Because you have in the churches, Christian churches, you have people walking around saying they're prophets and prophetess.
Yep.
And you got to ask yourself, is this real? And go into the scriptures and actually see, do prophets and prophetess still exist right now, today? And that'll tell you, because they are deceiving a lot of people about these prophets being in these churches and prophetess being in these churches. And we're going to go to the scriptures, actually, to talk about it, to let you guys see what we're talking about, that it's not just coming from us.
Right.
This is Yah.
Absolutely.
I'm going to read from the Apocrypha, which is the King James Version. And this is from the book of 2nd Esdras. And this is the book of 2nd Esdras, chapter 1. And this is going to be verses 31 through 38. It says, when ye offer unto me, I will turn my face from you, for your solemn feast days, your new moons, and your circumcisions have I forsaken. Remember, this is Yashrael, this is Israel, because Israel was cutting up back then.
Right.
So it says, I sent unto you my servants, the prophets, whom ye have taken and slain, and torn their bodies in pieces, whose blood I will require on your hands, said Yahuwah. Thus said the Almighty Yahuwah, your house is desolate. I will cast you out as the wind doth stumble. And your children shall not be fruitful, for they have despised my commandment, and done the thing that is evil before me. Your houses will I give to a people that shall come, which not having heard of me, yet shall believe me, to whom I have shown no signs. Yet they shall do that I have commended them.
Wow.
They have seen no prophets, yet they shall call their sins to remembrance and acknowledge them. I want to repeat that. It says, they have seen no prophets, yet they shall call their sins to remembrance and acknowledge them. Who does that sound like today? It says, I take to witness the grace of the people to come, whose little ones rejoice in gladness. And though they have not seen me with bodily eyes, yet in spirit they believe the thing that I say.
Wow.
Isn't this a group of people walking in belief?
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like.
Sounds like the believers of today. Sound like us, family.
Now this is prophecy. This is Yah. He is speaking and saying what is going to come. There will be, they will see no prophets.
Yet they will believe.
Yet they will believe in me. It says, and now, brother, behold what esteem, and see the people that cometh from the east. And then he goes on to name all of these groups of people that will come. The Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. But this right here was deep. And then I'm going to read one more too, the one in Matthew.
Right. Where it talks about it. The New Testament
confirms
what they said.
This is the New Testament scriptures.
In the Apocrypha.
Confirming the Apocrypha. This is Matthew 23:30. It says, and say, if we had been in the days of our fathers, we would not have been partakers with them in the blood of the prophets. And there's other scriptures too. If you go on and do studies that talks about how the prophets was murdered.
Yep. By our people.
Our people.
Killed the prophets.
Israel.
Yep.
They did it. They killed the prophets. So you got to ask, who are these people in these churches talking about their prophets?
Exactly.
Prophets of God, as they would say.
Exactly.
Is that the truth?
The scripture's telling us that prophets are dead. They murdered them.
They murdered the prophets, and he said that he's going to bring forth a people that is going to worship him, that's going to believe in him.
Without any prophets.
Without prophets, and they haven't even seen him. See, back then, Yahuwah was coming to people. He was coming to the prophets, and he was speaking to them.
Yeah. They said, thus says Yahuwah.
Thus says Yahuwah. And they were sending like Malaks and all of these things to speak to them.
Jeremiah, Samuel, Elijah.
So, and it's plenty more. So, this is how they were coming.
Yep.
But now we living in different times.
Right.
So, now it's like the believers that Yah is working through right now are the believers who haven't seen him, who haven't seen all of these miracles and signs and wonders, but yet through belief, they believe in him.
They believe in him.
This is what our belief consists of today.
Right. Absolutely.
Belief. What it says, belief is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen.
Absolutely. We read that last week. Powerful, yeah. So I hope y'all got a better understanding of that, family, and what you were saying, how it is applied today. This gift of prophecy, prophesying, kind of a little bit of what we're doing. You say is the gift of prophesying, because us coming on here giving these messages, but it has to be judged. That's how it was done
and
inside.
Inspired.
Yeah, but it has to be inspired by Yah. That's another definition of it.
But we're not prophets.
We're not
putting
the label of prophets right on top of our head.
No
we're not
way.
saying that.
We're not any prophets.
But again, prophesying is, like we just gave the examples, is correction, is prediction of future events. And a lot of time, like when we tell you guys, okay, especially you that are new in the walk, we say like, be careful of this, be careful of that, because we can see this happening to you. It's like a prophecy of saying what's going to happen if you do this, that, and the third.
Because we've seen it
happen before. So, and Yah talks against those things. So, but what I'm saying is that when we prophesying, we always tell you, what we say has to align with Scripture. And that's what Paul lays out when he's saying if you have the gift of prophecy. He talks about it in 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verses 29 through 33. He says, let the prophet speak 2 or 3, and let the other judge. If anything be revealed to another that sitteth by, let the first hold his peace. For you may all prophesy one by one, that all may learn and all may be comforted. And the spirits of the prophets are subject to the prophets. For Yah is not the author of confusion, but of peace, as in all assemblies of the saints. So it's saying when somebody's coming on here prophesying, if somebody's speaking Yah's word, it has to align. If they're speaking these things, giving their opinions or whatever, or they're saying they have a message inspired by Yah, it has to align with Scripture, fam. If it don't, something is wrong.
Right.
That's what we're saying. A couple examples we have when you went to that church with remember we was at that church and the lady came, she was a prophetess. And she had told your friend she spoke some things over her life. And your friend was saying, oh, it came true and all that, but is that really true? Was the woman really a prophetess?
No. It's not that she said it came true. No, the woman was speaking over her, saying that this is what's going to happen to you. You in a couple of years you're going to be remarried. She said you're going to have a big house, and you're going to be elevating when it comes to your home, material things. And honestly, that was years ago. That was over 13 years ago. And she's still in the same home she was in then. And that's okay.
Right.
That's not the point that we're making. Point is, these prophetess that appears to be speaking an inspired word of Yah, most of the time they're off. And if you do hear stories where they weren't off, you got to ask, where was it coming from? Was it really coming from Yah? Because we also know they're fortune tellers. We also know of people that partake in witchcraft. Yep. So we gotta go to that too.
He gonna bless too. He gonna give you, make it seem like these things are great and all that.
Or like these people are really prophets.
Exactly.
And so you start to believe in that thing because they have people that I know. This particular person that I'm talking about, she used to love that when they had prophets or prophetess going to her church.
Right.
So she would be like, "Oh, they coming! I'm going! I can't wait!"
I'm gonna get a message.
And that is something that happens today. Like that's been happening for years, where people in the Christian church, when they hear that prophets are coming to their church or prophetess are coming to their church, they get excited, and it's like a big event going on, and they go there because they want them to prophesy over their lives. But you got to ask that question. Isn't that similar to like going to somebody who's a fortune teller?
Right.
When you going because you want them to speak over your life and tell you about your future, what is to come.
Right.
We gotta ask that question.
We gotta question it. That's
because the scripture's telling us about the prophets and who they were and how the children of Israel at the time, they killed the prophets. They stoned them to death
because they didn't like what they was hearing.
They didn't like what
they were telling them to repent.
Right.
And that's totally the opposite of what religion is doing, family. What we always talk about. Religion is always talking about you're gonna get your blessings. Nowhere are they preaching against sin. When was the last time you heard a message preaching against sin?
And where are the prophets that's getting stoned?
Nowhere. Please show me.
Where are the dead prophets?
Please show me.
If anything, people are running to these so-called prophets and prophetess.
Yep, exactly. Because I'm gonna get my blessings in this world. And that's totally against Scripture. Come on, family. We know better than that.
All
so
right.
Praise y'all that we in this truth.
Right.
But family, that was the gift of prophesy. I hope edified you guys. You got a better understanding of it. We did. We're gonna move next into the gift of discernment. This is another important one. And I'd love to hear you guys' example of after we lay this thing out. Of your examples of where you went through, where you made right judgment or wrong judgment in certain situations. But the Greek word for discernment is Strong's number 1253, and the name is diakrasis. Diakrasis. And the definition is the act of judgment, distinguishing, Deciding, passing sentence on, the act of judgment, discernment.
That's very important. The gift of
judgment is important.
Discernment.
Making right judgments in situations, the right decisions.
Oh yes.
And really, family, that word describes being able to distinguish, discern, judge, or appraise a person, a statement, a situation, or an environment. Think about it, fam. In certain situations, were you able to discern a certain person? Were they of Yah? Were they of Yah? Or were they of Satan? Were they good or were they evil? Whereas an environment that you were in, was it good or evil? Did you make the right decision? Because we have plenty of examples of, man, it was crazy.
And discernment is good because what it does is it helps, it protects us. You know, it helps us to be able to make sound judgment and protect us from something that could possibly go wrong. You know, now we can't avoid everything.
Right.
But I'm just saying, having that discernment is very important within the body, so that you could make judgment. You know, to prevent something catastrophic from happening. You know,
and like you were saying, that's not just in our personal lives, but that's discerning when we're dealing with different teachers, making sure we can discern from, okay, is this person a false prophet, or are they teaching the truth?
Yes, and that. Go ahead. You can go on.
No, I was saying you'll know that a lot of times by their fruits.
Right.
So you have to see what fruits they're bearing before you even make that judgment. And I'm going to kind of dive into that. Want to say something?
Yeah, because I was thinking as you was talking about different teachers. And I thought immediately about many of us when we're coming into the knowledge of the truth. You may come into not all of us, but many of us when we coming into the knowledge of the truth. Some of us may be coming from brokenness. We may be coming from childhood trauma. You know, so we're searching and we're seeking. Right. And as we're searching and we're seeking, sometimes we can get caught up. You know, you can get caught up because then now you start seeing, there's believers that think like me. There's believers that's calling on the names like me. And then you get excited. Right. And then you start connecting with these believers. And then you get caught up in, I'm talking about ministry. Right. And you get caught up in a ministry and you thinking, this is my family now. And I'm speaking from experience, but this is my family now. And so now you're looking for something to fill that void that you had, And now you're like, okay, I finally found home. I finally found my family. And you're so excited about it. And then you're not even realizing because you see, you're not, at the time you're fresh in the faith. Right. You're not really mature in your walk. So your discernment is not that sharp. Right. And so you just wide open. And then as you continue to grow and pray and seek Yah and your discernment gets stronger, then now things start to come and you start to realize, hold on. Something ain't right. But I'm saying this is how people can fall into traps too. So that's why we tell you, even in your beginning, even in the beginning of your walk, that you look to Yah, not to man. You go to Yah and you make him that number one source in your life. He needs to be number one, not a minister. Do not make no minister your number one, because ministers could fail too. They fallible just like you. So you need to go to Yah and let him be your number one above all. Because when you do that, then as you're growing, you can develop that spiritual maturity. You can develop that discernment, that gift of discernment. That's going to be able to help you to spot things as you're growing in your walk. Exactly. Because sometimes you can be in your walk too, but you don't have that spiritual discernment. You could also discern, you could also discern in the wrong. That's what I want to say. Wrongly. And misjudge as well, because we've seen it. Where you misjudging your brethren or somebody who's ministering, you're misjudging them because you don't have that discernment to understand what they're telling you is the truth. Exactly. That's true. Yeah. That's what I want to touch on. Especially, we always tell you, family, those that are new in the walk, that you have to mature into this. We say that this walk is a marathon, it's not a sprint. So you can't come into the truth casting all these judgments and you're not really mature into your walk. That's why we tell you, take your time, sit down and listen, pray to Yah, ask him for guidance on these things.
That way he can help you. Way he can help you mature into your walk, make you mature into give you that gift of discernment.
Right.
So you don't make wrong decisions.
Right.
The scriptures talks about it. It's Hebrews chapter 5 verses 13 through 14. You want to read that?
Yes. It says, for everyone that useth milk is unskillful in the word of righteousness, for he is a babe. But the strong meat belongeth to them that are of full age, even those who by reason of use have their senses exercised to discern both good and evil.
So that's why we warn you, fam. Take your time. You're still on milk. I know you feel like you're in the truth. I got all this knowledge. I can pass judgment on this one, pass judgment on that one. Yeah, we know a lot of stuff in religion is false and Christianity is false, but take your time when you decide, when you're judging the brethren in the truth.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of them have been in this walk longer than you.
And
we've seen a lot of them that fell off. A lot of pastors and people that were teaching, they fell off. So don't be so quick to say just because you're in love with a certain teacher who teaches a certain way that you like, and everybody else,
topic.
Right, and everybody else is wrong because they got it right. A lot of times people send us all type of videos. Oh, check out this teacher. This is right. I believe this is right. You see, I have to slow down, family. Take your time. Slow down.
Can I say something too? I want to say this. Guys, we don't know everything. We say this all the time. We don't know everything. We're still learning and growing every day.
Absolutely.
But we've been in the truth, and we say this all the time for over a decade, almost 13 years.
Yep.
We've seen it all. We've seen about the earth, the flat earth. We've also seen about
Yahushua is not real. Not Paul. Paul is fake.
We've seen about the way you pronounce words.
Yep.
We know about
somebody messaged this morning. You say the W, the other one he don't say the W. So which one of you is right?
We know about all of that. We know about sometimes we say the word faith, but we know that the correct word is belief.
Right.
And the Hebrew is emunah. We know these things. But we just want you guys to know that when we speak, we're speaking to everybody.
Exactly.
Because some people that come on this channel are new.
Exactly.
We speak to everybody. We don't discriminate and be like, because we got this knowledge, we bigger and better than you.
Right.
We speak to the one that don't even have the knowledge yet.
Exactly.
So we know about the words. We know sometimes we may say something like church. We know that means assembly.
Right.
We know these things. I'm not saying we know everything.
Right.
But I'm saying that's a part of misjudging.
Yep.
Feeling like because
they said that word.
We're saying a certain word that we don't have that other knowledge that, the correct word is really this. This is pagan. And they say, like, some people may say, well, these words are pagan. But we got to remember Apostle Paul. Apostle Paul became like some so that he may win them over.
Exactly.
He said it he said how sometimes he would put it, sometimes he would do as though he was under the law.
Yep.
Sometimes he would do as though he was under the spirit. I mean, like, not under the law.
Right.
But it was to win
souls,
and it was depending on where they were in their walk. So we do know. And all I'm saying is we are open to learning and growing.
Right.
But the part that we're not okay with is when we have believers that'll come at us as though we do not understand. And look, do this, now do that.
Right. And
just openly come and criticize them like you're doing this wrong. That's the part. It's without the humility.
Exactly.
Because in assuming in the wrong way that we don't understand. We do understand.
Right.
And I just want to say that because we this is not, I know you say we got somebody message us about the W and all of that, but we get these type of messages all the time. And I'm like, they're saying that, but they don't even understand. They're passing judgment. We know this already. But we're not just talking to you, whoever they are. We're not just talking. We're talking to everyone because it's not about us. It's about winning souls.
What's the mission of our channel? To get folks out of religion into a closer relationship with Yah.
And we're being a fisherman. How they say that? A fisherman of men.
Men. Yep.
That's what it's about. It's not about us. So however we can do it and speak to these people, that's what it's about.
Exactly. We have to relate to them and not say, oh, we're going to completely change our ways or get outside of ourselves to reach them.
Right.
No, we still going to go faster.
No. Yes. Because some things is just not compromisable.
Exactly. But it's not like what religion does where you're inviting everybody in. Oh, everybody come in and we're going to adapt to y'all.
No, that's not what it's about. Because we do understand too, like, and we continually learning and growing. And we do study the new words and see what's pagan and what's not. And eventually we'll do something on that too in the future when Yah leads us to, because we want to. But until then, you know, we have to be governed by the Spirit and how Yah is moving us. And right now, guys, I know you can see the kind of world we living in.
Exactly.
It's not getting any better. This is becoming more like Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay, so we have to win help win souls over to Yah. So this is our motivation. But I promise you, ain't nothing here is gonna be compromised when it comes to our walk and our relationship with Yah. Words, guys, that's not our salvation. Names, yes. But words, because a little bit of everything, we was talking about that, a little bit of everything, we do have some paganism in it.
The clothes you wear, pagans made it. The car you drive, pagans made it. You're watching this on YouTube, pagans made it. So
our television, when we go shop to the grocery stores, or when we go and get toilet paper and all of these things that we're going to the grocery stores and for commodity things.
Exactly.
Who you think are behind these things? Who you think creating these things, and we come home and use them?
Exactly. So
it's a lot of pagans behind what we do.
That's what we warn you guys against, family. When you start going down this road of everything is pagan or everything it has to be this certain way, you set yourself up for failure, and
that's going to affect your walk, and then you're going to be strongly critical of your brethren, and that's going to really shake some things up in your life in a negative way.
And then guess what you're going to say? Nah, this stuff is too hard.
Oh, yes.
I can't do this walk.
Absolutely.
What can I do?
And I want to encourage you guys to go and look at our teaching if you haven't looked at it. Our message on building your faith on the rock.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Because it is kind of talking about what we're talking about. Yep. We have to be careful, you guys.
Yep. So, good message, babe. Let's continue. It talks about it also about how we have to discern, having the right judgment between good and evil. This is Malachi 3:18. It says, "Then shall ye return and discern between the righteous and the wicked, between him that serveth Yah and him that serveth him not." That goes back to what I said. You're going to know, like saying for false prophets, you're going to know them by their fruit. That's how you're going to know if they're wicked or not. Are they winning souls like what we just talked about? Or are you dividing people? Are you pushing people away from Yah? The mission of you listening to somebody speaking is their mission should be to draw folks closer to Yah. Not into all these other things. It's all about Yah at the end of the day, and drawing closer to Him and loving Him. Yes. That's what the goal is, fam. When it goes back to making righteous judgment too, the gift of discernment, we tell our kids all the time. A lot of people do that too, and like what you were just saying, especially for those that come into the truth, you're so quick to latch on to something because that's what you had in religion. You're so quick to want to call somebody your family. You want to call them your friend. But the scriptures tell us we have to test the spirit.
Test the spirit.
We have to be able to decide, make a judgment between right and wrong, good and evil.
Like we have to teach that to our children.
We teach that to our kids all the time. Don't be quick to call somebody your friend. Test them.
Test the spirit.
To see, are they a friend? Like John, we always say it's hard to find a friend like Jonathan.
A good friend. Oh, yes.
Jonathan's are hard to find. Jonathan and David. Oh, yes. So you have to test the spirit. It talks about it in 1 John 4:1. You want to read that one?
Yes, it says, "Beloved, believe not every spirit, but try the spirits, whether they are of Elohim, because many false prophets are gone out into the world."
Absolutely. Test the spirits, family. You have to test them, and you're going to know them by their fruits.
Right.
So they can say all these things, talk a good game like they say, but what are your fruits? What are you showing? What are you bearing? I'm watching the behavior, like you said. Absolutely. So family, gift of discernment too. I want you guys to think about it. Certain situations that you were in, environments that you were in, was your discernment right? I remember this one time when I was on the job, and this had never happened before. I've been on this job like 18 years. It was construction, family, delivering construction materials to job sites where they were building new houses and stuff. And sometimes it would be in the way, and I'd ask people to move their cars so I can unload the material. And this one time I went on the job, this guy, he had his truck in the driveway. He was inside working on building the house or something, doing some AC work or something. And this was a Latino guy. So I go in and I was like, man, can you move it so I can put the material in the driveway? The guy looked at me with a pair of eyes. And he had a shirt all full of tattoos in his face, neck, everything. You know, I looked at him, I'm like, I don't want to push it with this guy. Because I went back like about 2-3 times. I asked him, excuse me, could you move your vehicle so I can put the material? And that last time when I went, he looked at me, like to say, if you bother me one more time, it's on. I'm like, you know what? I'm calling his boss, and I'm gonna let them come tell him. I'm done dealing with him. I use my discernment, like something is off with this guy,
right.
And my life is not worth this construction material.
Right.
So I better remove myself from the situation,
right.
Use my discernment, and let the authorities deal with it, or let somebody that he will listen to deal with him.
Right.
So that in that instance, I feel like my discernment was right. But a lot of times, too, families, this isn't a worldly sense, but a lot of times people think about a lot of people that were in situations. This could be our friends, families, or stories that you've heard where their discernment wasn't right. They put themselves in the wrong situation, the wrong environment.
I'm sure we all probably been guilty of that.
Yep.
You know, like in a situation where we didn't judge the situation properly.
Right.
You know?
And like sometimes we feel like, man, if I could do a do-over,
right.
I would have did it different.
Right.
But a lot of times, family, people don't get that do-over. That reminds me of the story, when that little guy, he played on a local basketball team here in college, in our area, and he was one of the best players. He probably was gonna go on to the NBA, but he went to a football game with one of his buddies, and guess what? And this was a party. Everybody was wilding out and everything else. One of his buddies got into a fight with somebody. Guess what happened? He got in the fight. And he had a promising career and everything, trying to help his buddy.
Because they was beating up on his buddy.
Yep. Now, this guy is 6'8". The guy, he went fight the guy who his buddy was fighting with. This guy was about 5'11", 5'10", probably
and he
120 pounds.
Was really like beating up on the dude.
Yeah, he beat that little guy bad, but the little guy was hanging in there. And this was all recorded on video, family. The little guy pulled out a gun from nowhere. Pow. Killed that guy. Guy had a future.
That was so sad.
Future ahead of him and everything.
He was going to a good school.
Going to a big school, everything, and his discernment wasn't right, family. I mean, being that where he was, and in his he should never be in that environment where something like that.
Dealing with those type of friends.
Exactly.
You know, that could affect his future.
Right. You see that all the time with these NFL players, NBA players. They go back in the neighborhood where their old buddies was, where they shouldn't be at, and then they get into all kind of trouble.
Right.
So their discernment isn't right, and like we said, this is a worldly sense, but I'm sure you have examples.
But this
where
happens too.
It happens to us as believers.
Right. It's not always dealing with worldly, in a worldly sense.
Because sometimes we talked about it in our warfare lessons too. Talked about it where our family members invite us to situations where we have to make a discernment. Like, man, should I really go in that situation?
Right.
People invite us all the time to go to certain functions and things,
to go to certain functions. Yes.
Nah, we don't think that's the right environment. So
they used to invite us more. They still do every now and then because that spirit remains on our families.
Right.
But I noticed that it's not as often.
Right.
Because we've been in this truth for so long. So it's like they kind of getting used to it. But even though you've been in the truth for that long, it's just, we often say a spirit on them because they still will come from time to time and ask you.
Exactly. Yep. So family, let us know in the comments any situations you've been in where your discernment was right, or you maybe wish you could have do a do-over.
Right.
And like you said, it happens to all of us.
Oh,
so
yes.
We just have to continually pray for these things, praying that Yah bless us with discernment, bless us with these gifts so that we can make righteous judgments all the time. Family.
Right.
And so that was the gift of discernment. We're going to move into the last one, gift of tongues. Gift of tongues, interpreting tongues, they kind of go hand in hand, family. In tongues, the Greek word for it is a Greek number 1100, and the word is glossa, and it literally means the tongue or a language, a nation distinguished by their speech, and this is in the Strong's, family. And this gift, family, and this is the one we got a big revelation on. It's not the same gifts that we see in the churches, family, that we see in religion. We see it all the time. A lot of time when we see these things, you see these pastors, they'll just break out, start speaking in tongues. That's not what the scripture says, family. If you start speaking in tongues, somebody has to be there to interpret it. You can't just shout it out and then everybody else starts shouting it out. No, it don't work like that, fam.
Can I give an example? A couple of years ago, I probably said that in one of our videos. I don't know, we did a few.
Right.
But a couple of years ago, before we came into this walk, maybe like a year before we came into this walk, I remember going to visit one of my friends' churches. And I'm not going to never forget. I walked in the church, and when I picked up not when I picked up, we were actually like getting ready to pray. And they asked all of us to stand up. And I'm never going to forget, like, our eyes were closed, and all I heard around me was people speaking in tongues. And it was loud, and it seemed like it was everybody. And so I'm like, ooh, everybody speaking in tongues. So me, I'm feeling like I'm out of place. I'm like, am I supposed to be here? Because I don't know how to speak in tongues. And at the time, I never spoke in tongues. So I remember opening up my eyes, because I forgot the pastor had asked us to close our eyes and pray. And I remember opening up my eyes and looking around. And every single person in that church had their eyes closed, and they were supposedly speaking in tongues. Now I understand tongues. That was impossible.
Exactly.
Everybody does not have the same gift, and everybody's not going to be speaking in tongues.
You read that.
And when I look, because let me tell you something, I've been tempted to, like, when I was thinking like, man, should I pretend? But then I was like, should I pretend and act like I'm speaking in tongues too? So I started thinking, I said, I wonder how many other people are like me in here pretending.
Exactly, because you don't want to feel left out.
You don't want to feel left out.
Like you don't have the spirit.
Left out. I was ready to go, because I was like, man, does this mean I really don't have the spirit? I'm not a believer.
Right.
And I'm never going to forget that time. And that's when I knew something was wrong.
Right.
And I did not want to go back because of that, because it made me feel out of place and like I wasn't even a real believer.
Wow.
And then they have the one with our pastor too.
Right.
I know you want to share that.
You can share that one too.
Another one too that happened. That was right. Like, I guess y'all was just preparing us to come into this knowledge of the truth, because a little bit after that, we go to our church,
right? And
our pastor, he tells us, because I always wanted to speak in tongues. I would see people do it, and I always would wonder, is this real? Can people really speak in tongues?
Right.
I would love to speak in tongues. So I remember the pastor, he was like, I think it was maybe Wednesday, whatever. It was one of the days out the week, but I think it was Wednesday. And he was like, on Wednesday, I'm going to be doing
basically doing a class.
A class.
Teaching y'all
how to speak in tongues. So I was like, I was like, can we go?
Right.
So I'm asking, Brother Rasha, I'm like, can we go? I want to learn how to speak in tongues. And he was like, yeah, we can try it. And we go. And everybody again, appearing as though they're speaking in tongues. Absolutely. He have everybody walking in a line. And whenever they walk, he say, I'm going to touch you. And when I touch you, you're going to speak in tongues. So I'm like, wow, I'm thinking he got that much power? And so everybody passing, he talking, and I see everybody, whatever, And then he hits me, and I'm like, I'm like, I'm not faking. I'm not faking. And he touched me, and everybody look, and I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. It's not coming. It's not coming. So I never spoke in tongues. Brother Rasha never spoke in tongues that night.
Nope.
We left. And he came to my job, but he didn't know that was me. Because I used to be in banking. And he came to my job. He came through the drive-thru.
Right.
And I remember him saying, when he came, I was like, "Hi, Pastor." I said his name. I said, "I went to your class Wednesday for speaking in tongues." And look at me. I'm like, I was a Christian. So I'm like, it was nice. And I'm like, and he was like, "Really?" He was like, "Were you able to speak in tongues?" I was like, "No, honestly, I was not." He said, "Okay, come by my office, and I'm gonna help you with that." And I never went back to his office. I never went to his office, and I never went to anything else with no other classes on speaking in tongues.
Right.
That made me feel like tongues wasn't even real, because I'm like, that's the second experience with tongues, and I'm like, is everybody faking? So
that's what it seems like, right?
it. But then we'll go on into what tongues really is now.
Let's talk about it. In the scriptures, it tells us it's really in two parts, family, and the second part is going to really shock you. The first part is you speaking in tongues, you speaking to Yah. It's the spiritual gift. Speak to Yah that only Yah can understand, because it talks about it.
Well, only Yah can understand, I guess, when you speaking just you and him alone.
Yah, right, alone. It says in 1 Corinthians 14:2. He says, "For he who speaks in a tongue does not speak to men, but to Yah. For no one understands him. However, in the spirit he speaks mysteries." So these mysteries in this tongue you speak, only Yah understands it.
That's deep.
Men don't understand it. And that's something like you do. I think you've said it too. You've done it before when you in your prayer closet and it just overcomes you, and you start speaking in a language that you don't know of, and you only Yah understands.
Understand what you're saying.
Right. And in the second part, speaking in tongues, and really what they're talking about is speaking in a foreign language, and that's what was happening in the New Testament assembly, because they talk about it in Acts. Remember, in Acts, believers were from everywhere. They came from all over. And when I'm saying a foreign language, it means like in that person's tongue. So saying you have a Latino, right, in that nation's tongue, because the definition says it's a nation.
Right.
So in Acts chapter 2, it kind of talks about the whole thing. I'm going to kind of paraphrase some of the scriptures, but you guys can go and read that whole thing to kind of get a better understanding. But it says, let's start at Acts chapter 2, verse 1. It says, "When that day of Pentecost had fully come, they were all with one accord in one place. And suddenly there came a sound from heaven, as of a rushing mighty wind, and it filled with the whole house where they were sitting. Then there appeared to them divided tongues as of fire, and one sat upon each of them. And they were all filled with the Ruach, and began to speak with other tongues as the Ruach gave them utterance. And there were dwelling in Jerusalem Yahudis, devout men from every nation under heaven." So it's saying, family, they had men from every nation under heaven. They was from different nations. And when this sound occurred, the multitude came together and were confused, because everyone heard them speak in his own language. So they were hearing them speak, but they were speaking their own language. Then they were all amazed and marveled, saying to one another, "Look, are not all these who speak Galileans? So aren't they from the Galilean nation? And how is it that we hear each in our own language in which we were born? Parthians and Medes and Elamites, those dwelling in Mesopotamia, Judea and Cappadocia, Pontus and Asia, Phrygia, Pamphylia, Egypt, and parts of Libya adjoining Cyrene, visitors from Rome, both Yahudis and proselytes, Cretians and Arabs. We hear them speaking in our own tongues the wonderful works of Yah." So we see, family, when this happened, they were all from different nations, and they heard this man speaking in his tongue, but he understood them.
Right.
So it's like I don't know what's another nation. Say a Japanese person speaking to us in their language, but we don't know nothing about Japanese, but we understand them. And that's what Yah did in this situation. That's what the Spirit did. He gave them a tongue where they can speak their own language and they can understand.
Right. So that's kind of like a Japanese coming here And we just start talking their language to them.
And they understand it, right? And they're
understanding.
like, what? He's talking that? Because remember, family, during this time and in the context, that's why you always have to put scriptures in context. They didn't have what we have now, where people could speak these different languages and you could learn another language and all that.
Right.
Now we know that Paul could speak different language. Paul was highly educated.
Right.
Because he says it in the scriptures. How he spoke Greek, he spoke Hebrew, he knew many languages.
Mm-hmm.
And the people were mocking them in this situation. Back to it, they're like, man, are these people drunk? They speaking these different languages? It's like, no, they're not drunk. There's the spirit, the Ruach is on them.
Right.
So it's a powerful story, family. And that goes back to the scripture when it says, that's why you have to have somebody to interpret.
Right.
That's what they're talking about.
And think about it. They did have somebody to interpret it.
Mm-hmm.
Because the ones who was there saying they speak in our language knew what they were saying. So somebody was there to interpret what they were saying.
So if they were speaking in these tongues, these weird tongues, it wouldn't have been true because they wouldn't have understood it.
All right.
So they were speaking in that language and the people understood.
The people understood it. So like me, when I was talking about when I went to my church and the other church and everybody was speaking it, we have to remember everybody in there was speaking it and there were no one interpreting what they were saying. So when stuff like that happens, it makes you question. You know, and
is it real?
Yep, and it's, we're going to talk about that too. But it makes you question.
Exactly. It talks about it.
No interpreter.
No interpreter.
But this one they had it.
Powerful. And like we were saying, like when you said all those people were speaking in tongues, that's something that you speaking in a language that nobody understands. That's between you and Yah. You speak in tongue between you and your prayer closet. Because it says it. When you speak in that tongue, when you speak in that tongue, only Yah understands.
Right.
So you're not supposed to even do that in the assembly. And
how was I edified?
I don't know what
because I didn't want to go back.
Exactly. It scared you away. 1 Corinthians chapter 14 talks all about that, fam. What you just said, it scares you away. Because if they don't understand it, like, what are they talking about? Is this the place for me? And that's how you felt.
Yep. I went there to get edified.
Exactly.
Instead, they turned me away.
Exactly. Paul talks about it. Not only that you pray for tongues, but you pray that you can understand tongues. You pray that you can interpret it. It says in 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verses 13 and 15. Therefore, let him who speaks in a tongue pray that he may interpret. For if I pray in a tongue, my spirit prays, but my understanding is unfruitful. What is the conclusion then? I will pray with the spirit, with the Ruach, and I will also pray with the understanding. I will sing with the spirit, with the Ruach, and I will also sing with the understanding. So you not only have to pray that Yah bless us with this gift or that we have this gift, but pray that we can understand.
Yes.
That's powerful.
Absolutely. And I want to say
that's
too,
powerful.
Not just praying for this gift, but it also tells us in the scriptures that all of these gifts we are to pray for.
Yep.
We should be praying for all the spiritual gifts. That's something that comes by seeking Yah and praying that he fills us with these gifts. Whichever gifts that you want. Because it also says, remember it says, when it was asking, do all of us have this gift?
Yep.
And it tells you not everybody's going to have the same gift. So you go and you pray to Yah about the gifts that you would like to have.
Exactly.
And he'll fill you with those gifts if you're sincere in your heart and you want them for the right reason, which is to edify the body and not yourself.
Absolutely. That's true. Yep. So that was kind of the gift of tongues, family. The gift of interpreting tongues, it kind of goes hand in hand. It broke it down. Like I said, if you read 1 Corinthians chapter 14, it kind of breaks that all down. Like how I said, they go hand in hand. For somebody to have that the one to interpret, that's like a supernatural gift. You definitely have to pray for Yah for that. Because for you, like we said in the assembly, what we saw, what we witnessed, for somebody to interpret that, you have to be really close with Yah. And that's the only way you really can speak in tongues. In that instance, is if somebody can interpret that, what you're speaking. So,
and I want to say that I did eventually get the gift of speaking in tongues, but that was something that I prayed and cried and asked Yah for, and I wanted it from a sincere heart. And I do it in my prayer closet because to be honest, if there's nobody to interpret it, I'm not about to use it because it's not going to edify nobody.
Exactly.
So it's not about me.
And that's it, family. You're right. that was the whole purpose of this series, fam. And that's one thing that we learned, and we hope that you got from it. That when we pray for these gifts, like what you just said, it's to edify the body, edify each other, to uplift each other,
And give
not to
esteem
lift.
to Yah.
Yep, not to give esteem to us or to
Right.
uplift ourselves. It's to uplift you guys. I mean, uplift Yah,
Right.
and to
Because
build
He the
you
one
up.
gives us these gifts.
Exactly.
In His Spirit.
To build each other up. What the definition of edification is spiritual advancement, constructive criticism, and instruction that builds a person up to a suitable dwelling place of Yah.
Right.
And I think that's what these gifts are for.
And we
family.
can't forget too the constructive criticism when it
Mhm.
says that. Remember Apostle Paul, when he had to come sometimes to bring order to the
He
assembly.
brought order to
That's
the
what they're
assembly,
talking about. Sometimes he had to because they was really wilding out and acting out of place. So he had to
Exactly.
come to give a message to them.
Yep.
But he also gave encouragement. He didn't stay
Exactly.
there. He uplifted them
Encouragement,
as well.
Exactly.
You know, so
that's powerful. So
yeah.
that's the lesson, family. We hope you found it edifying. Again, that's the series.
We're done
we
with
learned
the,
a
with
lot.
the spiritual
Exactly.
gifts,
So
and hope you learned something too.
I hope
from,
it was different from what you
from
learned
your-
in religion, because
Right.
we see it totally different than what we were taught.
Right.
And again, we hope it was edifying to you guys. So
Yes.
talk to you guys next week. We hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend, enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you guys
And we
next
thank
week.
you for your support and
Thank
tuning
you.
in.
Yep. And again, comment, subscribe, share the videos if you think it can edify other people, other believers. So
Right.
we definitely appreciate you, fam, and love you guys.
Love you guys.
Talk to you next week.